the RTÉ Rugby World Cup podcast, sponsored by Bank of Ireland.
Hello and welcome along to the RTÉ Rugby World Cup podcast. We are heading into round 2 of games. Ireland against Tonga coming up on Saturday night live on RT2 and RTÉ Player. And with us this afternoon, Stephen Ferris. Thanks a million for joining us. A rare appearance on our RTÉ Rugby podcast. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me on, Neil. Appreciate it. I'm surrounded by greatness here, of course. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the opinions that after the team announcement. But yeah, it's a big week, isn't it?
Well, I was just about to mention it. With us also as well is Bernard Jackman, whose analysis of France's kicking game on Against the Head on Monday night seems to be the most watched viewed on Twitter this week, or what's left of Twitter. Bernard, surely that video you're able to add another 0 onto your invoices now and your appearances for the next year, yeah?
I'll try it. No, I think World Rugby have taken us down. We were heading for the million mark. Jim Hamilton with 960 something thousand or something, but World Rugby took it down. So yeah, I don't know what the story is with World Rugby at the moment. They're concentrating on anthems and refereeing and videos online. So yeah, hopefully they start concentrating on rugby soon.
Yeah, well, look, if people haven't seen it, it is still up on RTÉ Rugby's Twitter page as well. So go there, or X as they're calling it these days. So go there if you want to find it. Genuinely, three brilliant minutes of analysis. We'll get straight into it. We've so much to get through. We'll start with the big news, and I'm not talking about the Ireland team to face Tonga at the weekend. I'm not talking about the injury that's ruled Malcom Marx out of the World Cup. New national anthems for the weekend, guys. How are we feeling about that?
Delighted.
It's great that they're getting to the heart of what's bothering rugby fans over the last week or so, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. I'll tell you what, anybody that's been looking to give an opinion on Twitter has been complaining about the national anthems for the last week or 10 days. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any of the teams go with the choir again. But yeah, I think we could all do without that and get the passion and the pulling the heartstrings again with some of the national anthems before kickoff. Get those tears flowing in the eyes of the supporters around the stadium before their team kicks off. But yeah, I was going to use a different word there, but what a cock up from everyone involved to ruin the national anthems for so many of the nations, because it's such an important part, especially when you're there playing. But yeah, I think you learn. What do they say? You learn from your mistakes and you move on.
Yeah, I kind of have been taken aback, Birch, by just how strongly people are feeling about this.
Yeah, it's massive. And I was getting texts because I was in, like, obviously the first game was Friday night, and it actually sounded worse on the cans on the earphones. So actually halfway through La Marseille, I took my earphones off, and it actually didn't sound as bad because by that stage the crowd had kind of tried to take over. But look, I think the idea was nice, bring young kids involved and all that stuff, but it just didn't work, and it is a massive part of it. And it's good to hear it's being rectified now. But yeah, like they nearly ruined that pre-match. Only Ferris said there were so many French in the crowd who woke up and just took it in their own hands. But yeah, it's so issue,
Well, look, we'll get this back on track. We'll start talking about the rugby itself. The Ireland team to face Tonga is out. 4 changes from the win against Romania last week. Conor Murray coming in for Jamison Gibson-Park. Mac Hansen for Keith Earls. Ronan Kelleher is in for Rob Herring. And Josh van der Fleer in for Joe McCarthy. No Dan Sheehan. However, Dave Kilcoyne and Robbie Henshaw are among those on the bench. To run through it just quickly, Hugo Keenan fullback, Hansen and James Lowe on the wings, Gary Ringrose and Bundyaki in the centre again. Johnny Sexton stays in the team, captain alongside Conor Murray in the halfbacks. Front row, Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher, Tyg Furlong, Tyg Byrne and James Ryan in the second row, with Peter O'Mahony, Van der Fleer and Doris in the back row. And then the replacements, Rob Herring, Dave Kilcoyne, Finlay Beelum, Ian Henderson, Ryan Baird, Craig Casey, Ross Byrne and Robbie Henshaw. Stephen, we quickly mentioned it on air before we came on. It's a strong team, and particularly a lot stronger a team than we were expecting to see.
Yeah, I would say it took many people by surprise of how strong that the team is. Like something like not seeing Ian Henderson start is because the alarm bells start to ring with me because like he hasn't had that much rugby over the last season and a half, 2 seasons. Hasn't played in too many big games. Obviously held out for an Irish contract, then ended up getting injured in the Six Nations. Gets himself ready, goes to the Rugby World Cup. And yeah, Joe McCarthy started last week. He finds himself on the bench again. If Ireland pick up an injury, all of a sudden he starting against South Africa the following week. So a few things like that, but like it's very strong. I thought maybe Craig Casey would have started the game just to keep the tempo up early on. He's very like Jameson Gibson Park. His kicking game maybe not as good, and game management maybe not as good, but he's very lively. So yeah, a couple of things. And correct me if I'm wrong here, lads, but it's Jack Conan, Dan Sheehan, Stuart McCluskey, and Jimmy O'Brien are the four that won't have got a World Cup cap after this game. Is that right?
Off the top of my head, those four certainly anyway.
Right,
I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that's four. So fingers crossed we don't have a repeat of the Bordeaux 4 from 2007. Because it is important. Like I don't know what Bert's opinion is on it, like, but it's important that guys do feel like they are part of this journey, and are those four lads going to get their opportunity after this game? Potentially not. So it'll be really interesting to hear what Bert thinks about the likes of Stuart McCluskey. Would he be put onto the bench in either a game against South Africa or against Scotland? Probably not. So yeah, I suppose it's all about winning a Rugby World Cup, and you have to put your best team out there. But at the same time, it's important to keep the group happy and to keep everybody feeling a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. I think Jack Conan probably will feature if he's fit in one of the games. Maybe not South Africa. But Jimmy O'Brien may even come onto the bench if there's an injury because obviously he's utility back. But I just don't see Stuart being on the bench. And is he going to start against South Africa or Scotland? No, I don't think he is. So I wonder why he didn't play last week or be part of this squad, to be honest. Certainly Bundy's been really good. It's not a question of that. It's just how you manage it, and probably by going so strong against Romania, he gave himself very little option. And obviously they want to go hard 3 weeks in a row. They've certainly done that. Yeah, it's a weird one. And if he's not going to play, I remember there was a big debate about whether he goes or not. Like, do you need to bring that extra out center? And it's early days yet, but you would say that if he doesn't play, obviously that position could have been used, elsewhere. But look, let's see. Obviously, the beauty of McCluskey is if anything happens to Bundy or Robbie, he's good enough to start, and we'd have no fear about him. So I suppose from that point of view, he is a bit of a safety blanket. But yeah, I'm sure those lads are getting worried now. Who haven't obviously had game time.
The team and the squad itself, Birch, do you like the fact that he's gone so strong for this game?
I like the fact he's gone strong for Tonga. I don't think there was any need to go as strong for Romania. In terms of that's where you could have made sure everyone got a chance. But look, for a psychological benefit of that big win against Romania, getting minutes into people. Like, I've no, like, Sexton needed to play. There's no issue with that. But yeah, I think we probably went too strong against Romania, but we got away with no injuries. And I can understand why he wants to go strong this week against Tonga. The problem, I think, was that Bayonne match against Samoa probably put a bit of doubt in his mind. I think around too many seconds string together. And look, the last thing he wants is to fall over the line against Tonga as well, and not have confidence. So I can see it why, but I just think Romania being so poor, maybe we were a little bit over conservative in that game.
And he has generally, Andy Farrell, he's generally been reluctant to play teams like that, like he did against Samoa and Bayonne, where it's 11, 12, potentially 13 changes from the first choice. You bring it back to the Fiji game last year in November, where he made lots of changes and he wasn't pleased with how things went that day. There generally is a reluctance on Farrell's part to put out what we would kind of call maybe a fully second string team, or to make wholesale changes.
Yeah, and his sole job is to put a team out on the pitch that he thinks is going to win. And against Samoa, obviously weather conditions is a massive leveler, especially when it was teaming it down in Bayonne. Ball was really slippy. You know, Tom Stewart was making his first start, lots of pressure on him. I actually thought some of the line-out calls during that game were not smart. You know, a few throws to middle and tail, and put him under a lot of pressure. And then obviously the line-out has been, if there's one area that needs ironed out over, well, ASAP, leading into the South Africa game is the line-out. So he's went strong, and I feel that exactly the same as Birch. I don't think there was any need to go as strong against Romania. However, playing Bundy in that game and the game that he had, like, it almost feels that he is at the top of his game and he is brimming with confidence and he is firing on all cylinders. Where if McCluskey starts that game and Bundy comes on with 10, 15 minutes to go and doesn't really get himself into the game, then he starts this week. It's due to piss down again in Nantes on the Saturday. The weather doesn't look particularly great. Then all of a sudden Bundy's under a bit of pressure. So I think when lads are in form and they're feeling good and they're, fit, like, it's really difficult not to select them. And the same goes for Pete. The same goes for Tadhg Beirne, even though he was playing in the back row at the weekend. Put him back into the second row. He is absolutely flying. Like, the engine on the bloke at the minute is ridiculous. So, and again, just a few of the other guys in the team that seem to have gotten a lot of confidence out of that Romania game. And I suppose Andy's looking for a little bit more of that consistency through the group stages, and hopefully they can bring it.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Tadhg Beirne there. After our podcast on Tuesday, there was a comment on our YouTube on Beirne specifically about how about a minute or two before his last try at the very end, the camera kind of shot to him at a break in play, and he looked just absolutely gassed, out on his feet, grasping for the final bit of air in his lungs. And 2 minutes later, he's still the guy who's on, was it Bundee Aki's shoulder to score that final try, and it just shows the fitness and level of reserves they have. Birch, to move it on, I get the feeling hindsight is probably just going to dictate how we view the selections of it. If there's an injury this weekend, we're going to be looking back and wondering why we went so strong either against Romania or Tonga. If everyone comes through okay and Ireland have a great sense of continuity and go on and beat South Africa next week, we'll probably look back and say, God, wasn't Andy Farrell right to pick such a strong team for those first couple of matches?
Yeah, look at 100%. He knows how he's probably known for a while how he wanted to play, to be fair. And the game against Samoa wasn't a first choice team. It was very mixed. In actual fact, we haven't really had a full side. Obviously, missing Sexton as well in August. So he probably wants to get those combinations up and running for South Africa, because I think South Africa is must win now. It's not must win. It's far easier for us. Sorry, it's not even far easier. New Zealand's still a good team. It's easier for us if we can beat South Africa and finish.
Careful with the things you're saying here. Careful with what you're saying here.
I think they're going to grow into this competition. Yeah, no, I'm saying it's definitely, I would prefer to play New Zealand. It's not far easier, but so to beat South Africa, one, would make that easier, but two, it would, I suppose, punch a hole in them as well at the moment, because they're absolutely brimming with confidence. They believe that they have the game model, the players, the team spirit, the coaching staff to go back to back. So if you can, I know they lost in the group stages in Japan in the first game, but since then, whenever the form hasn't been amazing at times, but whenever they've really put the head down, pressure on that team, they've delivered. So I think they would want to beat Ireland in the group stages, and if we can beat them there, I think psychologically that can maybe damage them. And I think I genuinely believe it's between ourselves, South Africa, and France, as potential winners. So if we can do damage to, I suppose, a direct opponent in that, well, then that would be, that would be important for us later on, maybe that they slip up somewhere else. So yeah, I think that South Africa match is massive.
Final question on the Ireland selection then, Stephen. Dan Sheehan, obviously, if he is fit to play South Africa next week, he'll be going into that game having not played since picking up that foot injury against England. Would you still be confident putting him in there with such little rugby under his belt?
To answer your question pretty quickly, yes, is the answer. I think he's that good, and he's shown over this season that he is that good. He is very athletic, very explosive, powerful. He's not the type of player that comes across to me as if he needs 2 or 3 games to get up and running. I'm sure he'd be training the house down as well. The S&C staff will have him doing off-feet conditioning flat out over the last few weeks. Like he might find himself sitting on a bench ski erging it for what might feel like weeks on end. So yeah, like he'll be ready to go. The amount of training that he has under his belt over the last couple of months, especially if he's fit. Malcom Marx is obviously out. Mbanambi seems to be part of the bomb squad, and he's now going to have to start. He does have a fairly good engine on him himself, but I text Birch earlier on today just about I know we're going to move on to it about that Malcom Marx injury and who's going to fill that spot on the bench. And Dion Ferry at the minute, who obviously plays in the back row for the Stormers, is pushing on a bit as well. So there's loads of question marks around South Africa, and it's all down to one injury with Malcom Marx. Like it's amazing how everybody now is doubting South Africa just because one of their main players, and it would be exactly the same for Ireland. Like if Ireland lost Tag Burn at the weekend, for the tournament, the same question marks would start to come, and who's going to be the replacement and everything else. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy couple of weeks, but hopefully if Dan Sheehan can be a part of this crazy couple of weeks, then that's a huge positive for Ireland, and I would have absolutely no qualms of putting him in to start against South Africa. The only question is, Birch, who do you have on the bench? Because Rob Herring has shown that he is so consistent with his line out throwing, and he makes very few mistakes, and obviously the injury profile as well. It's pointing towards a bench with Rob Herring on it, but that's a question I'll throw to you as a former international hooker.
Yeah, look, I think at his best, Kelleher, is someone that has that power to mix it with the box. More power than Rob, I think, to be fair. But the problem is he's been so unlucky with injury. He hasn't had a consistent run, and we'll be taking that as a hope, really. And also his throwing isn't as good as Rob's. And when you look at Ireland and how so much of our attack is based around having a quality set piece, I agree with you. I think Rob is ahead of Ronan. Now Ronan obviously has the chance to play his way into it on Saturday, but for me, I would start Sheehan as well. I think for us to beat the box, you need him because he can beat people one-on-one. He's quick. He's unbelievably competitive. He throws well as well. So, and I would say, look, he hasn't missed the whole preseason. He got injured in August in a warm-up game, and absolutely the S&C would have been able to work him quite hard. And like it's not a back injury where you can't do lower upper body, a foot injury. So, I would be starting him, and I would be going Rob on the bench, but if Kelleher can obviously have a really good game, then it's going to be a tough decision because Kelleher gives you a little bit more bump, I think. I think Herring scrummaging is actually very solid. Maybe he's not as big and as powerful as Kelleher in the loose, but certainly technically he's an excellent scrummager. And you probably need that. Go back to South Africa, going 2 hookers, one and a hybrid was a gamble, especially when they went for 4 scrum halves. Dion Fury can play hooker, but it's not his best position, So now the fact they haven't named anybody yet, they say Malcom Marx. I think it's important for Malcom Marx to have a few days to process it. So when you're ruled out of a World Cup, the replacement can't come until you leave the hotel. They escort you to the airport. So effectively, they have a soft match. It's not far to get someone to fly in Monday or Tuesday. And I think that they're letting him have his few days with the squad, and I'm sure, they'll do right by him. And then I think Monday, obviously based on what happens in the game, if they get a back injury, then they can make a decision on Pollard. But I think it'd be a massive gamble to bring Pollard in for, I think they have to get another back injury first. But I think they're waiting to see what happens in that game before they make any changes. But Malcom Marx will leave, and he will be replaced, and probably replaced by a hooker, I think.
Yeah, and that's we may as well stay on this now. It was such a peculiar phrasing in the statement this morning that they said within a large squad of 33 and cover us at hooker, because Dion Fury can play there as well, obviously. But they also mentioned Marco van Staden is listed as a qualified to play hooker on the team sheet and is filling in occasionally in training. That, Stephen, ultimately that's not really going to be enough if you want to be winning a World Cup. I mean, surely it would be a remarkable risk for them to, if on Monday or so when they reevaluated things, decided to call up Andre Pollard or Lucanio Am rather than someone like Joseph Dweba, a hooker who's there and ready to come in.
Yeah, I think Birch is right though. They're probably going to wait until after this game. If they pick up another injury, then you can bring in a replacement hooker and Pollard.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be a huge gamble if there's no injuries, and on Monday or Tuesday of next week, Andre Pollard is announced as the replacement hooker for Malcom Marx. So we'll wait and see how that pans out. But I do, there is no question, Dion Fury and Van Staden can play at hooker. They will have been practicing their line-out throwing every single day. They've been taking part in scrummaging sessions. They are two very physical and strong boys. I'm sure the two props, Malherbe and Kitskoff, would have no problem with either of those two lads scrumming down with them at international level against any opposition. It's just when they come under pressure with line-out throws to the tail, I think they need a specialised hooker. And is Dweba the next in line? We'll wait and see. But it'd be interesting to see how it evolves over the next couple of days. And it's really unfortunate for Malcom Marx because it took him so long to get back ahead of Mbonambi, because Mbonambi seemed to be the guy who had the number 2 jersey for quite some time. And Malcom Marx, everybody was sort of saying that he's back to form, and then all of a sudden he's got his chance again with South Africa in the starting role, and he's been really, top drawer, world class. And an injury, an ACL injury, and even if you have Sia Khaleesi's rehab team, that's not going to get you back quick enough to play in the next round of the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think Neil, I think the South Africans press conferences, I mean, I wouldn't want to call anyone a liar, but I wouldn't believe a lot of stuff they're saying either. I mean, I don't know if you heard them about the traffic light system. That's nothing to do with tactics. That's all player safety. I just think that they've got to this stage where they're having fun with what they actually put out there.
Yeah.
And Razi's having a laugh. With some of the stuff. It's all believable if you believe everything they say, but if you look at it logically, I think I don't for a second believe that that's a health and safety issue. That's tactics. That's what it was when he started first with the Cheetahs. And it's them having an influence over decision. I don't think it's banned or anything like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I just say what it is,
Yeah, I did find the reaction to that, Stephen, a bit bizarre on Monday. Granted, it's it's an unorthodox way of doing things, and it's a bit of messing around. But there were in some quarters you were talking about, this is another example of Rassie Erasmus, bending the rules and testing the boundaries of the morals of the game. And okay, it's a bit of an odd thing to do, but there's nothing wrong with it, is there?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, but like he's going to speak into his microphone with the earpiece and get the message down to the water boy or whoever anyway. Like, so, I think again, it's just Rassie and South Africa loving to have social media and pundits and everybody else talk about this rather than talk about Manny Levox kicking. It's just sort of like deters you from some of the things that went on in the game. Like I remember chatting to Ruan Pinar about Rassie, obviously a good number of years ago, and he was Ruan was like, "Oh, he's crazy, man." He was sitting up in the stands, like with the flags. He was raising the red flag and then raising the green flag. And you're talking, what's that? 15 years ago. So yeah, he's he's doing something similar, and like if he wants to get a message on the pitch, he can get a message on the pitch inside 2 seconds, just by speaking down the microphone. So yeah, I think it's all distraction tactics once again by Rassie Erasmus, and like we all know how well it's paid off in the past. So we'll see how this works itself out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's great at getting people to talk about anything other than the rugby, in fairness. Another quirk of the South African selections this week, obviously, which is going to be fun to touch on. When the squad was announced, 6 weeks ago, and there were 4 scrum halves in their 33, we were wondering how on earth were all 4 of these lads going to be playing. I don't think any of us, Birch, thought all 4 were going to be playing in the one match at any given point. Is this going to be like the 7-1 split where people are talking about it's
look at
morals of the game?
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
I think he's having a bit of fun. He's having a bit of fun. No, I don't know. If people might say, "Oh, I saw a photograph where basically all 4 scrum halves were on the pitch at the same time, and they all had a 15-meter channel that they were just basically go up and down and look after any ruck in that 15-meter channel. And people are saying, "Oh, this could be a game changer." Of course, it won't be. But again, I think he's having a bit of fun with this. Obviously, 2 of his wingers or 2 of his 9s can play wing, and he loves a 6-2 split. So having that versatility is important. But it's just Romania. He's getting game, like realistically, this is the game to play them, and it kind of goes back to what Stephen and I were saying earlier on, that maybe we missed an opportunity to give guys their World Cup debut, but he could do that. He saw some Romania now. I mean, generally those weaker countries get poorer as it goes on. You know what I mean? So I think South Africa, even though they're not as fluid attack wise as Ireland, they'll rack up a good score, I think.
Stephen, can you imagine how annoying it would be having 4 scrum halves on the pitch?
Yeah, well,
on the one team, actually, forget about Romania's scrum half then as well.
Yeah, but I think if you had 4 Paul Marshalls on the pitch, like I think I would have retired from rugby a lot earlier. But yeah, like 4 lads like that. Williams, obviously. Bobby Skinstad told me that he's the fastest player in South Africa. Full stop. And that's not just scrum half. That's wings, centres, the whole heap. And I think he was able to show a little bit of that with his line break, and unfortunately the top tackle by Finn Russell, which got him. But yeah, he's a little bit of a maverick. He threw a couple of bad passes last week when he came on. He obviously likes a bit of an open game, but like this lad is going to stretch his legs at the weekend. Like I'm expecting Birch, like a 60 or 70 point win, and Banambi to get 4 or 5 tries, like more than likely if they turn to their maul. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And four Paul Marshalls, geez, I can't get that out of my head now.
Yeah, and even actually just looking across the back line there, like you Grant Williams, but Kane and Moody as well. There's some electric skill players out there as well. Shout out as well to Vincent Koch, who's making his first start for South Africa since 2019, 28 appearances in a row off the bench as well for him. So a nice one for him to get a start. Last bit I just want to mention from Ireland's pool as well. Poor Dave Cherry. of Scotland. I don't know, did you see that earlier this morning? Dave Cherry's out for the rest of the World Cup, replaced by Stuart McAnally. Slipped on the stairs in the team hotel, concussion, gone for 12 days, and they've decided they need to get an extra body in instead. I mean, like, for a player like Cherry as well, who probably has had a bit of a journeyman career, 32 years of age, his first opportunity at a World Cup. I know he came off the bench at the weekend, but Bershak, it's such a cruel way for a player's tournament to end.
Yeah, it is cruel, and obviously on the back of, what would have been a pretty demoralising loss for them against South Africa. Gregor had given him, I think, 3 or 4 days off as well. So I'm not sure if he was back in camp or they were in camp, but they weren't. They were staying in the hotel, but they weren't in camp. But certainly as a coach, your doctor or your head of medical rings you and say, look, we've lost a player on 3 days off or falling down the stairs. You're kind of going, what? It's not going to be our lucky tournament. And hard for him. Yeah, he's had a tough career really, but getting international rugby or getting to that squad late would have been a huge deal to him. And again, it's a bit weird. Like, they probably, if he's only out for 12 days, it must be a very bad concussion, because they probably could have carried him really, because they've
They're not playing this weekend.
He still only missed one match, and I don't think every concussion is going to be sent home. But look, that's the decision they made, and it's going to be a tough couple of weeks for Townsend until they get back on the pitch.
Finally, to loop it all around, actually, Stephen, we got carried away into Malcom Marx and South Africa, but Tonga themselves, they haven't named their team for this weekend against Ireland. But obviously, we know some of the star names that are going to be in there, like Malachi Fekitoa, Charles Piatow, Avea Fafita, a lot of these ex-All Blacks, Peter Aki of Toulouse as well. Plenty of star power in there, but results and performances over the last couple of months during the World Cup warm-up campaign and the Pacific Nations Cup would indicate they're struggling to knit all of those together.
Yeah, like it's all well and good having the firepower of a number of class players when they have the ball with plenty of time and open space, and counter attack with not much of a defensive line in front of them, but they're up against more or less a full bore Irish team, and they won't get that much possession. They shouldn't get that much possession. I feel like Ireland didn't utilise their maul at all against Romania. And it's something that you have to practice, like outside of training and in matches as well. Especially leading into South Africa. I think they'll turn to their set piece again if the weather conditions aren't great. They'll turn to that maul, eke out penalties at scrum time, kick to the corners, just sort of grind Tonga down a little bit. Any of that hype, after the Sia Pow, is it? The war dance before the game, that they'll be bubbling over, ready to rock and roll, and it's their opening game of the Rugby World Cup. So there is absolutely no doubt that they will bring physicality through the roof, but ultimately they don't have a forward pack that should cope with Ireland's, and switch Peter Aki and Charles Piatow and Vea Fafita in with 3 of the Irish lads, they might have an absolute field day. And but it's just the other players around them, and it's just the strength and depth of some of the Pacific Island teams. And I think they'll give Ireland a good game. I think the bookies have it at 36 points or something. But yeah, I can see it being a slightly tighter than that, if again reverting back to the weather conditions. But yeah, it'll be a good test, and hopefully they do test Ireland. I think everybody wants to see Tonga really put it up to them. Like, if it's a 15 or 20 point win, but it's really hard fought, and Ireland's skill set was good, their maul was good, set piece good, line out functioned well, ruck accuracy, didn't give away too many penalties, then they can walk away from the game and go, geez, that was we played pretty well to beat Tonga by 15 or 20 points. The last thing anybody wants is for Tonga just to turn up and play for 10 or 15 minutes and then go out the gate. I think we need to see a hugely competitive game, and personally I think we will. And yeah, I still expect Ireland to put 30 points on them by 80 minutes in the game.
I will move on from this because there's loads we want to get through. But one of the talking points from the weekend, Birch, was the inconsistency, or what we thought was the inconsistency anyway, of the approach around head contacts and cards being given out. So Saturday night, Tom Curry, yellow card upgraded to a red after the bunker review. He's got a 2-match ban, England's 4th red card in 6 games. Then on Sunday, a pretty similar incident, Martin Sigren of Chile, head-on-head contact as well. That's a yellow, doesn't get upgraded. Later on in the day, Jesse Creel of South Africa, again, what we thought was a head-on-head contact with Jack Dempsey of Scotland, missed by everyone on the day. No sighting coming from it. From my opinion anyway, 3 very, very, very similar incidents with 3 starkly different outcomes.
Yeah, but the problem is, Neil, is that, well, the reasoning for that World Rugby have come out with today is they're saying that their TMO, their team, have 16 angles that we don't have, and effectively that there's no issue, that it's being consistent. But again, like, that you need to build up a lot of trust to totally put belief in that and be happy with that. And I think we have to ask questions, and we have to be expected to be able to see these see better angles, you know, to prove it or to explain it. So that's the problem for me, is that I don't think there's enough trust built up between refereeing and the public, or the officials in the public, or the deciding commissioners in the public, and that's based on a lot of inconsistency leading into this, when we have had the angles, right? So we've had the angles that we don't have now, and we've seen a massive variety. We thought the bunker 1, TMO 1, TMO 2 would have made it more consistent. And in the first batch of games, I don't think it's been satisfactory. So that's another area that they're going to have to sort it out, because if every week we're talking about, you know, the non-red card or the red card that wasn't justified or whatever, or the yellow card that was missed because the TMO didn't see it, it's not too bad now, because there's been no game decided on it, basically, I don't think. But, you know, you lose a quarterfinal or semi-final based on a poor decision, that's gonna hurt, and it's not gonna do anything to grow the game. So yeah, I think if they're very happy that those decisions were correct, release the images so we see that, you know, the screenshot, the still shot, the angle we had was misleading. Because at the moment we're kind of making an opinion in the dark, and we're going with what our gut tells us, which is different to what the disciplinaries or our committee are deciding.
Yeah, and Stephen, I think there's a real opportunity here for World Rugby to actually be able to present this information to people after the matches in a really clear and informative way, where they're saying, it was in this article in the Telegraph late last night and this morning, that they have a lot more angles than what's being shown on TV, and they were able to see, for example, that Jesse Creel and Jack Dempsey, that was initially like a chest on chest contact before it became head on head. Now, why on earth have we not seen this? Why have we not seen this angle? Why has someone from World Rugby not been able to put this up on their official channels on Monday morning, 24 hours after the match, and say, there has not been a sighting in this game. We're able to show you these replays. Here are the reasons why, X, Y, and Z. And everyone might not agree on it, but at the very least, people are informed as to how the decision came about.
World Rugby are just busy taking down Birch's links on Twitter, so they are.
And changing.
But I think World Rugby are actually confusing the fans by the information that they're putting out. I think every fan now, if there's head contact, thinks it's a red card. And like anybody I'm talking to saying, oh, geez, you know, the Tom Curry one's exactly the same as the Matsushima, Chilean player. And I was like, no, it's not. I was like, it's not exactly the same. And they were like, oh, why? Head on head. I was like, well, hold on a second. Tom Curry is the one, catches the ball, and he drives into him with the force, leaning with his head, high, upright, clash his head. The next day, Matsushima catches the ball, has a second or two, and then he sprints into the Chilean player who almost absorbs the tackle and doesn't. Yes, he's upright, but there is mitigation there because he isn't the one that's coming towards Matsushima, and he is absorbing the impact. And I did believe that the two incidents were different, and I do believe that the referees got both those incidents right. And many people might disagree with me. The players had to go off. The players were cut and split open. Also, Matsushima didn't make a meal of it on the ground. He wasn't busted open, so he got back to his feet pretty quickly. And that in itself says to me that the player didn't feel like it was a dirty act either.
Mm-hmm.
He felt it was just a coming together, a rugby incident. If it's a rugby incident and you're upright and you're absorbing a tackle like that and your head is still in the way, that's not good enough and you need to be penalised and it should be a yellow card. But if you're Tom Curry, you cannot sprint into somebody who's just after catching the ball. I didn't think there was much of a wrap. Everybody was telling me, that he tried to wrap. I didn't see a wrap. I just seen an arm out. Hail Mary, kamikaze stuff going straight towards the player who was catching the ball. And you have to have safety in mind in that incident. And he didn't. And I straight away when it was upgraded, and the more I watch it and the more I go through other decisions, the more times you see, I think it was the Dan Bigger in the Fiji game. He's a bit like Sexton. He tackles very, very upright and always just leads with an arm out. Again, I thought that could potentially have been a yellow card, but in no way is it exactly the same as Tom Curry's incident. It's just not the same. And that's just to go back to the original point, Neil. World Rugby are making it complicated for fans because all the fans think if there is head contact, it should just be a red card.
Well, hopefully next week we're not going to have to be talking about decisions like this. We're running out of time very quickly, Bert. I do want to mention, but probably the game of the weekend coming up, Australia and Fiji. If it's anything like Fiji and Wales was on Sunday night, hopefully we're in for an absolute belter.
Yeah, Fiji put a massive effort. Quite slack defensively, and Australia have the firepower to hurt them and get scores. But it could be a total shootout. I think Eddie Jones hasn't been able to get his team to play the conservative rugby that he played with England. There's still a lot more free spirit in him, and obviously Fiji only know one way to play. So that definitely is going to be the game of the weekend, I think. Well, certainly on paper it is anyway.
And a little bit of a scare for Australia as well coming up. Taniela Tupou, Stephen, bit of a hamstring tweak in training either yesterday or this morning. The Roar in Australia, Christy Doran, is saying that it's potentially 3 to 4 weeks. So pool stage could be over for him, or at the very least, maybe up until the last game of the pool stage. But not a player you'd want to be going into the knockout stage at the very least without.
No, definitely not. And like the Fijians be rubbing their hands there. He's obviously a very powerful, dynamic scrummager. And I think that's an area of Australia's game that they really surprised me with. I know it was against Georgia, but we all thought, Georgia were, their set piece was going to be a lot better. And Australia certainly had the upper hand for 50, 60 minutes until Georgia brought on their better props. But for me, looking at this game and looking at the way Fiji played against Wales, I'm just really happy that Andrew Brace is refereeing the game. I think that he is an outstanding referee, one of the best in the world. And, I'm not saying that Matt Carley refereed the game unfairly. I just think that the way the game shifted in momentum so many times, I actually thought Fiji shot themselves in the foot by taking scrums over and over again as well.
Okay.
That sort of subtracted the momentum out of their game. If they had just taken a quick tap, and then all of a sudden there's another infringement, before you know it, the 3 minutes of scrummaging or whatever it was has been forgotten about. And, straight away, Matt Carley's given a yellow card because it's just continuous over and over. So, yeah, it's certainly going to be the game of the weekend. And for some reason, I just think that the drop ball from Semi Radradra at the weekend will almost make them better this week. I really think that there's a surprise here. They've shown it against England. Their set piece, their line out was unbelievable. Really good, really solid. The throws, right on point. So for me, this is the game of the weekend, and I'm not sure will they start with a similar team as last week. Their goal kicking is still a problem, but they've so much firepower there and sort out a few things defensively off set piece, and they're going to be a difficult team to beat.
All right, you've sold me anyway. 4:45 on Sunday evening, live on RT2 and RT Player. Australia and Fiji. Also on Sunday, South Africa and Romania will be on our RT2 and RT Player from 2 o'clock, as well on Saturday evening, Ireland and Tonga. 7 o'clock on air, 8 p.m. kickoff. Fellas, that's all we have time for this afternoon. Thanks a million for joining us. A reminder as well, we will have Against the Head on Monday night next week. And also, for those with young kids who want to learn a little bit more about rugby, the latest episode of Ruck and Roll with Sean Treacy and Mary Claire Fitzpatrick, that's going to be out on the RT Kids YouTube page and the RT Player as well from Saturday morning. So there's going to be something for everyone over the next few days on the RT Sport Rugby World Cup coverage. We will be back on the podcast on Tuesday, looking ahead to the big one, Ireland against South Africa. We'll speak to you then.
The RTÉ Rugby World Cup podcast, sponsored by Bank of Ireland.